If you're the default parent, you're making decisions all day long, and most of them are invisible. You're deciding what's for lunch, permission slips, doctor's appointments, then you get the "can you bring snacks" text, and the mental math of if we leave at 4:10, we can still make it. And then at the end of the day, you're standing in front of the fridge like it's a pop quiz you didn't study for. That isn't laziness. It's called decision fatigue, which is often amplified by chronic stress. I'm Amanda Armstrong, and today we're talking about decision fatigue and the role it plays on the health of the default parent and what we can actually do about it. You have probably heard the term default parent or maybe even single married mom. These two terms are kind of new and making their way around the mom world, like Taylor and Blythe's text messages. And as a resident default parent and a once single married mom, I really get the awfulness of the shame cycle. We are in charge of literally everything and then end up arguing about what's for dinner after already making 4,000 decisions throughout the day. I have 4 boys between the ages of 16 and 10. My husband has a pretty demanding career, and while we both were working outside the home and I was in grad school, there was a lot of evenings of frozen pizza. Between my job demands, my school demands, and being a wife and mother, I had reached burnout on a catastrophic level. So much so that we shifted to me working from home in a career that I can kind of do anywhere, including in the car pickup line. Being the default parent usually means you're carrying the family's mental load. The planning, remembering, anticipating, and decision-making that keeps the family running. Even when your partner is super helpful, you may still be the one who notices what's running low or tracks schedules and deadlines and monitors everyone's moods and needs of everybody in the house. When the load stays high for long periods, it doesn't just feel stressful. It changes how much decision-making capacity you have left. In my first marriage, I was not only the default parent, but was also very much a single married mom, to the point of emotional and physical abuse. I chose to leave that marriage for my boys and I to have a healthier opportunity in life. And I was also determined to break generational cycles of double load of women's work. What my second marriage looked like 4 years in was still not that massive shift in equitable home life I thought we would have. Before we moved in together, we sat down and discussed who was going to take control of what household task, and I really emphasized the importance of not gender rolling for our boys. I wanted them to learn that they can and should contribute to the home. We definitely ended up in the spot where everyone was helping me and not actually contributing. I was starting to feel that same suffocation of burnout, and it was mostly related to decision fatigue, and not necessarily the actual task. I don't have a problem loading or unloading the dishwasher. It's the thinking about the dishwasher, knowing if we need new dishwasher packs, knowing when our next big meal is going to be so the dishwasher needs to be empty, and knowing what's in the fridge that maybe needs to be cleaned out so that those things could be washed. All of that thinking was causing me to be pretty burnt out. So let's talk about decision fatigue. This is a term that's making its way around popular lexicon as many women are trying to fight the same battle I was. A definition of decision fatigue is that it's the deteriorating quality of decisions after a long session of decision making. In other words, the more choices you make, the harder it gets to make the next one. Decision fatigue symptoms often show up as procrastination, impulsivity, avoidance, or just shutting down. Not because you don't care, but because your brain is trying to conserve energy. We tend to use the word stress when we're talking about these symptoms, but decision fatigue is not the same as stress. Stress is the pressure your mind and body feels when demands are super high. Chronic stress is what happens when the pressure doesn't let up. According to the Mayo Clinic, chronic stress can disrupt almost all the body's processes, which increases the risk for multiple health problems and keeping stress hormones elevated over time. When your system is already running on high alert, each decision costs more. So if you've been thinking, why can't I handle what I used to handle? It may not be you. It may be the stress load that you're carrying. Our brains have limits. Working memory is like the stack of Post-it notes you have all over your planner. It can only hold a few things at a time. And research on self-control describes a phenomenon called ego depletion, which is a temporary inability or even desire to engage in any self-control, specifically emotional control after considerable labor. Decision fatigue is one way this inability to regulate your emotions shows up after repeated decisions. In other words, self-regulation gets harder the more decisions you have to make. We know that chronic stress symptoms can include things like sleep disruption, irritability, or feeling overwhelmed, which is exactly the conditions that make decision-making harder. When your stress stays high, decision fatigue hits faster. It can feel like a system crash. Your brain stops wanting to weigh options, plan ahead, or even make compromises or trade-offs. You can also refer to this as choice overload or overchoice, which describes how too many options can make choosing harder and more stressful. When you're already depleted, more choices doesn't feel like freedom. It feels like pressure. And this is why you cannot make a decision about where to go for dinner, even if your partner narrows it down to 2 to 3 options. You end up in a state of decision paralysis and regret as you end up eating Taco Bell at 9 p.m. So here's the loop that keeps default parent moms stuck. We have more choices, which leads to more mental effort, which creates more decision fatigue, which leads to more stress and less patience. And that more stress makes decisions feel even harder. It is a horrible cycle. And if you have ADHD or you're parenting a child with ADHD, your day often includes more rapid switching, more interruptions, and more regulation demands, which means your stress levels and fatigue are maxed out on a massive scale. But, and this is important, this isn't a moral failing. It's a capacity issue. When decision fatigue is high, frustrations feel more irritating and impulses feel stronger. That's why you can end up fighting about something that seems small, like how the dishwasher was even loaded. If you're the default parent, what you are actually fighting about is often centered around the question, why do I have to decide everything? The good news is that this is a systems problem, not a character flaw. Here's a quick checklist. Count how many of these symptoms you're experiencing on a regular basis. First is avoidance. You're constantly saying, I'll do it later. Second is impulsivity. That's where you say, whatever, just buy it, eat it, say it, whatever you want. Third is defaulting to the easiest option, even when that's not the best option. It's just the easiest. You end up with increased irritability. You have trouble making trade-offs. Do you feel numb or shut down? Are you spending more time scrolling and checking out of the family? More snacking or sugar cravings? How many times a day do you say, I can't think? And then you end up with more second guessing and regret. If you have any of those 10 on a regular basis, you are approaching a total systems failure. We're going to get into specific strategies to stop that spiral in just a second. But first, I want to offer something that reduces decision fatigue. Think about your evening routine, your skincare. If you're staring at 10 different bottles on your bathroom counter wondering what to use, that is just another micro decision draining your battery. That's why I want to talk to you about the Beauty Secrets skincare bundle from Insight Family Market. Nobody has time for a complicated 10-step skincare routine every morning or night. And frankly, you don't need it. I've switched to the Beauty Secrets skincare bundle and it has changed the game. It takes just 5 minutes. You get a probiotic face scrub to gently exfoliate, a glowing serum for vitamins, and the incredible tallow balm to lock it all in. It's simple, it's non-toxic, and it actually works because it supports your skin's microbiome instead of nuking it with chemicals. Simplify your routine. Head over to insightfamilymarket.com and search for the Beauty Secret Bundle and use a code podcast to save 10% on your order. So let's talk about what we can do about this cycle of stress and fatigue. And remember, you don't need a perfect routine. You actually need fewer decisions. First, You should prioritize your regulation because regulation is the foundation. Before you decide, help your body downshift. Even 60 seconds can change what your brain can access. Second is to close some of the thought tabs you have stuck open in your brain. You can do a quick brain dump on paper or the Notes app in your phone. Write down everything you're trying to remember and handle and circle the next 1 to 3 priorities and concentrate only on those. Park the rest on a not today list. A third strategy is to try to externalize executive function, using checklists, recurring reminders, or maybe even adding a weekly family meeting to discuss delegation of not only tasks but decision making. Fourth is to reduce your choice overload on purpose and limit options to 2 to 3 choices. One way to do this is to create defaults like the same breakfast, rotation of dinners, and a standard after-school routine. You also need to define your good enough standards. What does your afternoon routine need to look like just to feel okay? Not perfect. You cannot reasonably expect perfection when you're dealing with kids or other humans in general. Not everyone will load the dishwasher the same, and you gotta be okay with that. A really important strategy to try is to protect your high-stakes decision window. This means you should schedule important decisions earlier in the day when possible, and avoid major decisions when hungry, or you're tired, or dysregulated. Check in with yourself physically before you even try to make a decision, because sometimes you just can't. Here is a 5-day less stress, fewer decisions reset plan. On day 1, identify your top 3 daily decision hotspots. What 3 things do you decide every day that makes you feel anxious or you feel overwhelmed or you have that I can't think moment? On day 2, create one default, whether that's your meal rotation, maybe your outfits, or some type of routine. On day 3, reduce one choice overload area. So unsubscribe, simplify, limit your options. Day 4 is add one external support. A list, a timer, a reminder, a shared calendar, something to executive function outside of your brain. And on day 5, review what reduced stress the most and repeat. I know we've talked a lot today about stress and that feeling of paralysis, but sometimes it's hard to even know where the stress is coming from when you're in the middle of it. And you can't fix what you can't see. That's exactly why I created the State of the Family Audit. It's a quick tool designed to help you pinpoint exactly where your energy is leaking so you can stop guessing and start fixing. Stop trying to solve everything at once. Go to the link in the description, take the audit, and get a clear picture of what actually needs your attention. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next week.